Shalom, shalom, and welcome. Welcome to White Roads family. My name is Symmanayah, and this is Visible Countermeasures, a series of White Roads family. Visible Countermeasures. This is part 5. If you're tuning in for the first time, these messages are for those who believe they are drawn by the Almighty Father and Creator Yahuah to Yahusha Mashiach. Those who seek to do His will. I consider you my brother, my sister, my family. My brothers and sisters, in this 5th installment of Visible Countermeasures, I want to bring your attention to the population shuffle and forced migrations. And I'll explain this as we get into this segment. For truly, for such a time as this, we will begin to realize that movement has begun. Some are moving out of fear, jumping from one place to another. Some are petrified and sheltering in place and don't know where to go. And others are being forced to move, some of which are unaware that it is by the hand and power and orders of the Almighty Father Yahuah for His purposes. But before I get into details, let me read the disclaimer. Warning and disclaimer. The information contained in White Roads family represent instructions and warnings to individuals who believe they are drawn by the Almighty Creator Yahuah to Yahusha Mashiach, as it is written in John 6:44. The content presented centers around end-time realities. Please be advised the site is not intended for children under 16 years of age due to its content. That's to be compliant with the video platforms that I'm using. By continuing forward, you agree to hold Symmanayah harmless of any influence and or actions that arise as a result of watching, listening, and reviewing the content presented. The views expressed do not reflect the owners and management or shareholders of this media platform. Please note that I am not affiliated with anyone or organization with similar names. With that said, my brothers and sisters, let's get into this segment. Please be advised, though there is not much talk among leadership that movement have begun, or even the concern about movement as it relates to the final Exodus, the words in which I present are to bring to reality that this generation is the generation that will witness the final Exodus, that will witness an emergence of the 144,000 and a great multitude as mentioned in Revelation 7 chapter. I've entitled this particular segment, Population Shuffle and Forced Migration, because the mechanisms, the functions, the things that have begun already are occurring whether people are talking about it or not. Some people are moving from one location to the next because they believe the disease, the coronavirus, is not as widespread. Some are moving because they believe the coronavirus may be a hoax or overly magnified, and so they're moving to states that are more liberal, that allow you to move about more freely. For whatever reason, people are moving. Some are moving out of fear, some are moving out of desires. And believe it or not, some are moving because they are ordered by the Spirit of Yahuah. Population shuffle. Migrating from one place to the next. You see, my brothers and sisters, and what makes this pertinent to countermeasures is the Most High Father, Yahuah, states in the scriptures that He will gather His children from the four corners of the earth, that we will return to His set-apart mountain, where we will worship, continue to worship and obey Him and await the physical return of Yahusha Mashiach. With these words said, with these words promised from our Almighty Father Yahuah, in the name of Yahusha, the countermeasure is the wicked one wants to sow confusion, wants to magnify fear of what man can do, wants to magnify the strength of trying to save these earthen vessels. Therefore, we know that the Father, our Father Yahuah, the Almighty One, he that is the beginning and the end. He's not the author of confusion. Confusion comes from the unlearned, the undiscerning, the wicked, the rebellious, those who have the wrong intent. And in that confusion that the wicked one is sowing, we see people shuffling about, not thinking. Some are saying, well, nobody really knows where to go. We who are Yashar'al, let us be mindful of what has been promised, what has been prophesied. We who are set apart Yashar'al, we have a duty to partake in the confirmation, the reaffirmation, and for some, the participation of the final Exodus. It comes with orders and living instructions. And the Most High Father states that he will gather his children. And even in our disobedience, discipline is promised. And in that discipline, I assure you, O Yashar'al, if you are one who will be in the ranks of those who support in or participate in the final Exodus, his discipline initially to some will be as a forced migration. My brothers and sisters, end times will prove that a great tug of war is getting intense. What I mean by that, my brothers and sisters, there are mores, teachers, pastors, community heads, outspoken individuals, and those within our reach of viewing, listening, fellowshipping with. There's a tug of war pulling you in one direction or the next. There's a tug of war pulling you, saying, this is what you should do. This is where you should go. This is where you shouldn't go. This is where you should stay. There's a bit, I shouldn't say a bit, there's a massive tug of war trying to build camps, communities, fellowships. In some cases, there are individuals who speak against denominations, but yet they promote their camp, their community's banner. Some have even went as far as to say, this is my community, this is my ministry. Like they own it. Like that is the ways of the laws and statutes of the Almighty Father. If we see and witness what was happening in the scriptures, my brothers and sisters, when Shalum wrote to a body of believers, he said to those who were assembled in Corinth, to the saints that were in a location, but in the vanity of man, there are those who have went to the point of naming their community, their camp, their group, with logos and banners in such a way that they have made that priority over the building up of the body of set apart Yashar'al. A great tug of war is intensifying as those who desire to be a part of a community, a camp or fellowship in the midst of this coronavirus, COVID-19, in the midst of uncertainty, civil unrest. There's a great tug of war, O Yashar'al. And we are instructed to walk filled with the Spirit. We are instructed to discern the living guidance of the Almighty Father. I submit to you, the solution is coming. Chosen leaders of the Almighty Father will rise up, those who will be used to fulfill the promises from the Almighty Father Yahuah. In the name of Yahusha, they will rise up. And those who will follow and participate in the coming together, the unifying of a set-apart nation, will become visible. My instructions to you, O listener to these words, is know how to ask questions, know how to vet, know how to examine yourself daily, as well as those whom you interact with. Know how to examine. For in asking questions with prayer and with the intent to seek and identify those who are walking filled with the Spirit, we must learn how to ask questions to uncover whether in heart the person's desires to do the will of the Almighty Father, or whether in heart their intention is to push their own ego, their own pride, their own hidden agenda. You might say, you're doing a lot of talking. That I am. Hear these words, O Yashar'al. Let's get into some scriptures. Yashar'al, it is important, very important, that we recognize that there is an inward man. We have the earthen vessel that will return to the earth, and our spirit will return to the Almighty Father as it is written. Many people think that means it goes up to heaven. That's not what the scripture says. It says return. Yahuah, who is the beginning and the end, the Almighty One, is everywhere at all times. There's a place of rest until resurrection day. We must understand that the house, when it talks about judgment beginning at the house of Yahuah, in 1 Peter 4:17, that house is this earthen vessel. Individually and collectively, we make up the house of Yahuah. And that inward man is that which is the part that lives forever. And we who are set apart, drawn by the Almighty Father to Yahusha Mashiach, our spirits will forever be linked. And no man can take us out of the hand of Yahusha, out of the hand of Yahuah. The final exodus will prove that placement is important. Movement will come. There will be what can be perceived in the midst of population shuffle, forced migration for those who are ordered. Not, will you come and be with me? Will you come and let's get together so that we can demonstrate or set apart? It's not going to be a passive event. It is an event that has begun a process that will prove that there are living orders to gather together to complete the final exodus and more. Here I have one passage of many that speaks of the final exodus. Isaiah 43:5-9. Do not fear, for I am with you. I shall bring your seed from the east and gather you from the west. I shall say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not keep them back. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth. All those who are called by my name, whom I have created, formed, even made for my esteem. He shall bring out a blind people who have eyes, a deaf ones who have ears. All the nations shall be assembled, and the peoples be gathered. Who among them declares this and show us former events? Let them give their witnesses to be declared right, or let them hear and say it is true. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al. Notice that it says in the 7th verse of the 43rd chapter of Isaiah. I read Isaiah 43:5-9 is what I just read. In the 7th verse, notice it said, even made for my esteem. There are those who will want to sugarcoat this final exodus and say all of us, all of the Hebrews, all of the set apart ones, all you got to do is obey his laws and statutes, his 10 commandments. All of us going to be gathered from the four corners of the earth. For those who believe this gathering will occur before the physical return of Yahushua Mashiach, that will not be a true statement. For there will be martyrs. There will be those that will fall away. There will be those left behind. There will be those who have concluded their task and assignment and may not and will not participate in the final exodus. So not everyone. There will be those that will support, those who will be like bridges and add support and contribute towards the final exodus, but may not actually be in the ranks of those gathered. Now, if you don't believe that there'll be a gathering before the physical return of Yahushua Mashiach, and you're just speaking on the resurrection time, sure, there'll be a gathering. But search the scriptures, my brothers and sisters. There is a gathering before the physical return of Yahushua Mashiach. There will be unity among the set-apart chosen of Yahuah. And we will discover that the world will come to admit who the true Hebrews are, who the true Abraham, the seed of Abraham, our true identity. Whether you say Hebrew Israelites or Hebrew or Abraham, the world will come to admit. For these are part of what must come to be. This is what must come to be as we are gathered from the four corners of the earth. Do not lose belief or trust. Let me continue. In these trying of times, my brothers and sisters, you hear me mention often Deuteronomy 8:3. He humbled you and let you suffer hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, to make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but every word that comes from the mouth of Yahuah. My brothers and sisters, as famine ramp up, as food shortages, whether they are a result of drought or a result of people destroying excess, whatever methods occur, whatever methods are being used, there is a constricting, a shortening, a decrease in our food supply, whether it's be due to the logistics it reaching us, or whether it's an obstacle that tries to prevent us from growing our own food by different rules and laws and regulations. If ever a time we would see the strength where we can relate to what happened to our brothers and sisters in days of old, during the time of Deuteronomy, Moses, Moshe, we will begin to relate what it means by not living by bread alone, but every word that comes from the mouth of Yahuah. The time is now to begin to discuss adapting, changing our eating habits, our drinking habits, not being irritable because we can't have a specific food or drink, being able to withdraw if you are a caffeine addict or sugar addict, being able to go through the withdrawal and rise up strong. Now it's the time to discuss the things that if you did not have, how you would manage these earthen vessels, your earthen vessel, so that you don't become irritable. During such a time as these end times, my brothers and sisters, it is important for us to be strong and trust and believe what the Most High have for us. I have here Proverbs 14:26, and I've shared it before, but you may be tuning in for the first time or missed it in time past. Proverbs 14:26 say, "In the fear of Yahuah is strong trust, and his children have a place of refuge." Yashar'al, oh Yashar'al. During this population shuffle, my brothers and sisters, knowing the right choices to make is important. Focusing. I want to say this before I get into some more scriptures, my brothers and sisters. Visible countermeasures. You've heard me talk about forced migration. Most recently, those of you who are aware and awake may have discovered that there's been news that China has been kicking Africans out of China. They have even gone as far as not even allowing Africans to go to the grocery stores or into the restaurants. They're trying to motivate Africans to get out of China. Believe it or not, oh Yashar'al, there were Hebrews in China many, many years, but this nation hides them, have hidden them. Some of them have even adapted Chinese culture, but there are Hebrews in China, and they have been for many generations. And there are those who have migrated to China as a result of China's relationship with various African nations. But now they want them out. And so many have taken on the banner saying they just racist. They just want us out. Have you ever considered these words? I present this case to you. In the story of Jonah, when he fled what the Almighty Father wanted him to do, when he fled and got on the ship, and the storms came, it's prevalent that those on the ship were praying to another idol, to an idol, versus praying to Yahuah in the beginning. And when they sought to save their lives, they ultimately went to Jonah, and they asked him who was his Almighty One. And they all prayed to Yahuah for the storm to be lifted. And they tried to continue without waiting for an answer for Yahuah. They still tried to keep the ship intact. And finally they realized that the judgment that was on that ship was because of Jonah. And they tossed him into the sea. They kicked him out of the ship. And ultimately, if you know the story, you would see that Jonah ultimately went and proclaimed what Yahuah wanted him to say to Nineveh. Could not the Chinese realize that in these end times, the Hebrews must return to their homeland? Could not the Chinese realize that the disease, their destruction, their demise, the things that are bringing closure and that can lead to their extinction could be the judgment of the Almighty Father? And so they're kicking the Hebrews out, just as those on the ship kicked Jonah out. So maybe, just maybe, oh Yashar'al, we're perceiving the things as just racist and they just don't like us. Maybe, just maybe, they don't want to admit that we're the true Hebrews. It's just saying that the narrative, the propaganda is just that we're kicking Africans out. Sure, some among the Africans are Hamites. Hamites, those who look like Hebrews, or Hebrews who look like Hamites. We know that races have been mixed. But the Almighty Father knows that man cannot mix the spirit of those whom he draw. Forced migrations, my brothers and sisters. Population shuffle. Will we find that there are other nations that want us out? Look around. Some of the nations where we see how we are treated, and I'm talking about true Hebrews, and those that are grafted into the body of Yashar'al, who seek to do the will of the Almighty Father, who have been made one with us, who are set apart, Yashar'al, by Yahusha Mashiach. We see, look around. You've seen situations where someone, many of us have, if not, it wouldn't be hard pressed to search and find evidence where someone would say, I want that byword out of here. And if you who are of an other nation, if you who are a Gentile are seeking to do the will of the Almighty Father, if you are worshiping the same Almighty One that this Hebrew is, I want you out too. You see, my brothers and sisters, those who seek to do the will of the Almighty Father, both Hebrews and Gentiles, you see across the board. Now the pinnacle or the key factor is kicking the Hebrews out. We were scattered, and we are scattered, but we will be gathered, O Yashar'al. So before you take on the mantle of saying, I want to fight this racism of them trying to shuffle us around, consider that the judgment of the Almighty Father, as well as the fruits of our decision, are all occurring as the Almighty Father began to force us to where we're supposed to be. So there are those that are being directed and earnestly stirred and compelled to begin to move. And there are those who are outside the set-apart family of Yashar'al just because by nationality they're Hebrew, they're forced to move. Make no mistake, we must look at this clearly. Even as I speak, O Yashar'al, this COVID-19 coronavirus, they're trying to say that it is, well, not trying to say, let me just put it this way. The statistics that they're using are inferring that it's most widely among Hebrews. Think about it. If this narrative was to be enlarged and embraced by the world, eventually they would say, we don't want them coronavirus people by us. They would look for ways to corral us and gather us up. It may even lead to them saying, get out. As civil unrest ramp up, my brothers and sisters, those outside the family of set apart Yashar'al, for whatever reason, even in the narrative, the propaganda, the truth of the browning of America or the browning of the world. Even as they battle that browning of the world, there's a propaganda and narrative that brings about confusion and battles. But let us focus on that the Almighty Father, Yahuah, is gathering his children, his elect, is strengthening them to speak, to confirm, to proclaim, and to shout hallelujah, to recognize what he's doing, the right choices, knowing the right choices to make, my brothers and sisters. That time is now. The time to focus is now. Let me continue. My brothers and sisters, again, this is something that I've shared, and I find myself compelled to share it again. As we witness population shuffling, as we witness forced migrations, soon and very soon, each and every living person on this planet will have to move if they are still to remain physically alive. Search the scriptures, my brothers and sisters. The destruction that is coming, the chaos, floods, wildfires, disease, and pestilence are ramping up and enlarging, O Yashar'al. Consider these words regarding focus. It is so important. You see, we love one another. Some say they love one another. Some of us not sure what love is, but we'll take the word because it's a warm, fuzzy thing, but not knowing that true love brings about discipline. True love preserves and protects. True love promotes life. My brothers and sisters, pain and suffering will enlarge in the coming days. The promised discipline of the Most High is coming. The promised vengeance is coming. His wrath have begun. All of these have begun and will ramp up. But it's important to understand why we must focus and begin to examine ourselves and one another and listen to what the voice of the Spirit of Yahuah is saying in Yahusha's name. Proverbs 4:25-27 reads, "Let your eyes look forward and your eyelids look straight before you. Consider the path of your feet, and all your ways are established. Do not turn to the right or to the left. Turn your foot away from evil." My brothers and sisters, some may be confused when they say don't turn right, don't turn left, turn your foot away from evil. Some may not be clear of what that's saying. What this is saying, O Yashar'al, is that the ways of Yahuah are fluid. Do not establish a rule to say, go left. If you go left, you can't go wrong. Go right. If you go right, you can't go wrong. Do not fall for a rule that says left is better than right or right is better than left. Consider the ways in the propaganda machine in the United States and even across the industrialized nations. They tend to try to make it look like going right it's a conservative and righteous way to go. Going left is more communistic and it's wrong and wicked. See, they've put an agenda of this left or right, what it means. And believe it or not, in a highly politicized environment, many people have adopted that to say, well, that's what that means. This person is more right or more left. This verse knew that man will do that and try to put that rule. Make no mistake, O Yashar'al, know this fully. We are to turn away from evil, whether we see it on the right or left. We are to understand that looking forward, we look to the person that gives us breath with expectation of what he wants us to do. When death and widespread destruction comes, when it begins to hit those we are close to more widely than it is already, when the pain comes, my brothers and sisters, the way to endure until the end is to know how to look forward, to walk forward. We will not be able to run back or run to the many funerals that will rise, the many deaths. Some people are losing loved ones that have been cremated or tossed in massive grave. And please, my brothers and sisters, know this. I'm not making light of the death of these individuals. But remember, we physically live we spiritually live by the words that proceed out of the Almighty Father Yahuah. It is he who determines when one will return back to the grave. It is he who determines what occurs. Let us not throw our fists up at the Almighty Father. Sure, pain and suffering has begun as we lose loved ones or can't be with loved ones. But the Most High have told us this for years and years. It is written in the scripture of what's to come. Let us embrace the realities. To proceed in what he has for us, we must learn to focus. It says, give no sleep to your eyes, no slumber to your eyelids. If you look around, my brothers and sisters, as conditions ramp up, we see among us people saying, I can't sleep. I can't sleep. Are you among those who face that? Maybe we will understand what it means when it says, give no slumber to the eyelids, to the eyes. Let's visit words regarding the stirring in the bow. I want to bring your attention to something that I've yet to see someone connect. Zechariah 9:13 says, for I shall bend Yehudah for me. You see, my brothers and sisters, if we're going in one direction, to turn is akin to the word bend. He said, I shall fill the bow with Ephraim, and I shall stir up your sons, O Sion, against your sons, O Greece, and I shall make you like the sword of a mighty man. Notice how he said, I shall fill the bow with Ephraim. My brothers and sisters, I submit to you, a bow is the instrument for delivering arrows. So to fill the bow is to fill it with something akin to an arrow. And an arrow is designed to pierce through, to pierce, to get inside. Here he's saying he's going to fill the bow with Ephraim. He's going to fill the bow, the instrument that is used to motivate Ephraim to do what must be done. That action comes from the Almighty Father. Now hold that thought, how we see. And if we are aware that the Almighty Yahuah changes not, come with me. I want you to remember the bow in Revelation. Revelation 6th chapter, the 2nd verse. And I looked and saw a white horse, and he who sat on it holding a bow. And a crown was given to him, and he went out overcoming to overcome. I submit to you, O Yashar'al, the filling of that bow. This person on the white horse is symbolic of the battle of the set-apart children of Yahuah against the wicked. If you want me to put it in even a simplest term, the battle of the set-apart children of Yahuah against the religious and rebellious. And the bow is filled with all the things that the Most High would give us to do, to shoot forward to one another, to pierce these earthen vessels so that we rise up, fulfilling the purpose of what must be done. The bow, the arrows of set apart instructions will come, and they will pierce these earthen vessels. Our inward man will receive the purpose. Pray and seek to discern and understand this, my brothers and sisters. For the white horse has been riding for a long time, and we must make a decision and choose. My brothers and sisters, you heard me talk about Jonah. And I say to you, regarding forced movement, fleeing and sorting, go visit the story of Jonah. Visit it. Read it. Read it as one hungry for meat, not milk. Don't just scan through it. Read it, study, pray, and seek the life in it, my brothers and sisters. Understand there are details before a gathering actually occurs at the magnitude we anticipate. And I submit to you, as we see populations shuffling, as we see forced migration for whatever reason, when the dust settles or as things intensify, we will recognize, O Yashar'al, the power and might of Yahuah in fulfilling his promise. Discerning, believing, obeying. We cannot neglect nor ignore that these are a requirement. Remember the closing scroll, my brothers and sisters. I have a segment, a series, which talks about how habitable places will roll up and man will be forced back to the area where life began. For the set-apart children of Yahuah, centered around the true Mount Sinai, which is currently known as Jabal al-Laws. And those outside of set-apartness will gather in Megiddo, ultimately. The false Messiah and false prophets, the anti-Messiah and false prophets, the beast, the wicked system. The nations will come together, and in their jealousy and anger, and in their wickedness, they will march towards those who have been gathered by the Almighty Father, centered around that set-apart mountain. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, what say you? What is your position? I have begun asking this question very frequently. Are you satisfied with your moray, your teacher, your elder, your bishop, your pastor, your priest? Are they equipping you with the instructions and directions on how to walk strong and set apartness in the event of their absence, in the event of their death? Or are they allowing you to lift them up and magnify them? Are they more so enabling you to speak so much of them that unknowingly your attention have come off of Yahusha? Yahusha Mashiach says those that come to him have been drawn by the Almighty Father. Yahusha Mashiach is quoted as saying, if he be lifted up, he'll draw all men to himself. I say to you, O Yashar'al, when we lift up Yahusha Mashiach, when we magnify our Savior, the word of Yahuah, Yahusha, when we lift him up, it is he who draws us together. It is he who guides us through these trying times that will get intense. But if we are magnifying a man, a woman as our leader, more so than Yahusha Mashiach, if that leader, shepherd, pastor is not correcting individuals to say, no, we must magnify, and I'm saying Yahusha is his name. Look around, O Yashar'al, all the different variations of how we pronounce the name of the Savior. And look at those that give you the most instructions, the living instructions, those that provide demonstration of the living bread of Yahuah. And look at what name they're using. Sure, there are those who are arch-thieves, which I spoke of before. Truly, there are individuals who will take things that are set apart and try to still mimic and say, well, no, if I say this name of that man, or some will just say it doesn't matter. Look at the one who shows origin of life-giving instructions. And one way to discern and identify such is by asking questions. Where did you get that from? I've never heard you teach that before. How did you receive that? If they say, oh, the Most High gave it to me, his Ruach, tell them, explain it to me. You see, the things that the Most High give, he floods with scriptures and endless instructions that supports the directives that he gives. There are times, sometimes, my brothers and sisters, where I say, well, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm making a mistake? And just as I say that, I'm praying, asking the Almighty Father, am I wrong? And he floods my mind, my spirit, with so many connecting scriptures. He brings to mind, have I not guided you to this day? Have I not been with you? Hear my voice and continue to grow in my voice. And know how to manage that cognitive factor, that brain, that muscle, that organ. Know how to manage that flesh that war against the spirit. Trust me and obey me, says the Almighty Father. I say this, O Yashar'al. End times will prove the need to identify the chosen leaders and the final gathering. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al. We must never forget. Matthew 24:24 says, and false messiahs and false prophets shall arise, and they shall show great signs and wonders, and so that they lead astray, if possible, even the chosen ones. You see, it says, if possible. In other words, my brothers, the chosen ones, those who are chosen to fulfill specific things that are written, will not be led astray. 2 Thessalonians 2:7, which I do not hear people speaking of other than those who believe possibly a pre-trib rapture will occur. But there will be no pre-trib rapture. The secret of lawlessness is already at work. All the wickedness that we see in the midst of this virus, in the midst of economic turmoil and civil unrest, all that we are witnessing is the fruit of the lawless one at work. But he cannot, the anti-Messiah, known as the Antichrist and the false prophet, cannot be magnified to his fullness until the restrained, he who restrains is out of their midst. And whether you realize it or not, O Yashar'al, those of the final Exodus, we are that restrainer. O Yashar'al, we are those who restrain. So what is occurring, my brothers and sisters, is that the wicked one is doing all that he can get away with, all that he is allowed to do until the restrainer is removed. And we who are set apart should be doing all that we can do as guided by the Spirit of Yahushua until we hear that call, that ultimate call, until we begin to witness the migration coming together, until we begin to witness the emergence, the unity. And this comes step by step, person by person. Consider what's forcing movement, my brothers and sisters, and take heed. You see, and I use the term visible countermeasures because as Yahuwah grabs and calls and directs, the countermeasure is the wicked one is saying, don't worry about it. Go to where it's less coronavirus people. Go to where it's more money. Go to where it's less people. Go to the mountains. Go to the rural areas. There are people that are saying, go here, go there, go left, go right. These are countermeasures. But when we focus, my brothers and sisters, if we can identify the countermeasures that's trying to counteract what the Almighty Father is saying to you, to me, to us, to those who will participate in fulfilling final day prophecies, we will understand what the directions of the Most High is telling us to do. And we will learn to discern the countermeasures that the wicked one is trying to use, or I shouldn't say try, is using. Yashar'al, oh Yashar'al. There's force movement. Begin talking about how to navigate, with whom, how to lead, how to submit, when to listen, when to discern when the Spirit of Yahushua is speaking through a brother or a sister that may not carry the title Moreh, leader, pastor. You see, a leader is one who serves. A leader is one who demonstrates how we engage the Almighty Father through Yahushua Mashiach. What do you think Yahuwah's word manifested in the flesh, what do you think he did when he was walking physically on this planet? He was demonstrating how to engage the Almighty Father, that Spirit, everywhere at all times. He was the word manifest before us to demonstrate how to do these things. Are our teachers, mores, leaders, pastors, community heads, are we echoing the things that reinforce how the Spirit of Yahushua directs us in order to know how to move? Visible countermeasures, my brothers and sisters. My brothers and sisters, consider what's forcing movement and take heed. Famine, pestilence, disease, that's forcing movement. We can look at it as these things just make me sick. These things just irritate me, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm weak, I'm depressed. We can look at it however you want to look at it, O Yashar'al. But my instruction to you is to look at it as a fulfillment of what is promised by the Almighty Father. My instructions to you, O Yashar'al, is to seek to discern what the Almighty Father is saying to you. My instructions to you is to embrace these things as something that weakens the body and brain and physical vessel, to allow the inward man to rise up strong, to allow the inward man to begin to take control of these earthen vessels and know how to press through famine, pest, and disease. Sure, my brothers and sisters, things that are forcing us to move. There are laws that may ramp up, talking about you need to get the coronavirus test or any type of new disease or plague test and vaccines. These are things that will cause people to move. If one state institute that law, we have a choice. Will we take the test? Will we take the vaccine? Or will we relocate and get away from places that's trying to make it a law? In some cases, my brothers and sisters, we will face the test of choosing whether to be stuck with a needle or syringe, whether it be licking on something that has been prepared that might contain the virus itself or some other known pathogens. These laws could be things that can force one to move. We can look at that as it's being forced to move in a negative sense, or we can look at that as the Almighty Father is allowing such things to produce the fruit of wickedness, such that we who are set apart will know it's time to move. Seeking safety and shelter during such times as ahead, as more evictions will come and foreclosures will come. Do not be deceived, my brothers and sisters. There may be temporary fix, but remember the prophecies of end times speak of widespread destruction. There will be intermittent movement. The unifying of a set-apart nation. Think about the process and details, O Yashar'al. That brings about movement. Components of the final exodus. Leaders, followers, supporters, discerners. Individuals from many backgrounds who have been given favor by the Almighty Father, granted favor to achieve certain skill sets that contribute to the building up of a set-apart nation. Leadership and structure will bring about movement, even forcing movement, for leaders will execute orders given by the Almighty Father. There will be structure. Navigation preparations. Do you know when to go north, east, west, south? Navigation preparations, beginning to discuss how to navigate, which routes we will take as we begin to come together. Making decisions and obeying the living words of the Almighty Father. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, discovering living plans for moving beyond our current state is important now. Now, O Yashar'al, discuss how to discover those plans and identify those plans. Discuss, O Yashar'al, how to embrace. What part do you play in the plans of this final exodus? What part do you play? And the word play, please, I'm not saying play. This is not a game. What is your role regarding end time prophecies? Discuss these matters. If a leader, teacher, moray, pastor, community head, group leader, if they're focused more so on them and that camp, that community, they put more priorities on that than lifting up Yahusha, discerning his voice and obeying him, I assure you, the judgment they receive will either make them anew and they get right and straight, or as an obstacle that is ill, they will be removed in one way, shape, or another, or we will be removed from them. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, do not get comfortable unless you believe the Most High is telling you to be still in that community camp or fellowship, in that location, until widespread destruction. Maybe you are one of the places a person will come for safety and shelter as they migrate towards the promised land. Make no mistake, The time of preparation, the time of understanding what must and will come to be is now, O Yashar'al. White Rose family has been given the mindset to introduce a plan that is a contributing factor, O Yashar'al, to the coming together of unity. Set apart plans that will contribute to deliverance as led by the Spirit of Yahuah. In the name of Yahusha, there will be relocation and lifestyle changes. There will be those included and those left behind. I have a plan, O Yashar'al, I believe, given to me by the Almighty Father. And I know that there are others given plans that require discerning when to connect. As the 144,000 in multitude come to be. In White Rose family, we will talk about the vetting of team leaders, proving that they are chosen by the Almighty Father, to develop an information and resource center, both physical and virtual, to build a team with diverse skills, where mentors are teaching the unlearned, whether young or old, giving them skills, helping them to develop expertise, and be fruitful in the favor that they've received from the Almighty Father, the education and experiences, whether it be traditional or non-traditional, things that are learned, things that are taught for the contributing of the building up of a set-apart nation will come to be. To purchase land in Virginia, for I believe in the Commonwealth of Virginia, this will be the exit point in the Western Hemisphere for set-apart Yashar'al who will gather from the four corners of the earth. To identify support and safe zones as we migrate, not just in the Western Hemisphere, but across the globe. Movement will come. Population shuffling have begun. Forced migrations have begun. And to the set-apart children of Yahuah, we will begin to identify the orders from the Almighty Father, to provide guidance and support for completing this journey, to provide guidance for the inner court life, the set-apart life of the children of Yashar'al, the children of Yahuah, to understand and know what we must do as we find ourselves waiting on Yahusha Mashiach's physical return. Yashar'al, I speak of often. Plans and actions come at a cost. Everything is not monetary. For soon, we will see the most valuable physical currency will be fresh water and food. Watch, O Yashar'al, fresh water and food would become the most visible or most valuable currency as things ramp up in end times, as things begin to get intense. Count the cost, my brothers and sisters. You have received favor from the Almighty Father with a sound mind, with skills, with resources, with attributes that can and will prove to contribute to the building up of a set-apart Yashar'al. Use it or lose it. Remember Matthew 25, 14 through 30, the parable of the talents. These are realities and truth. I'm not trying to scare anyone into giving to me. My brothers and sisters, do as you believe you are guided, for I have no doubt that the Almighty Father will soften hearts and harden hearts. I have no doubt that he will successfully fulfill what he desires us to do through us, in us, one towards another, and collectively. If you are receiving any words from me that brings about life, that pushes you towards Abba Yahuah, consider subscribing, for I believe there's much more to be said. Consider sharing with others. Will you assist? Will you contribute? Consider supporting, investing time, resource, skills, or money. Consider sponsoring. These words go out to all who they are designed to reach. I have set up Cash App under White Rose Family. You can contribute through there or email me for details on how you want to contribute, if it's beyond money, or even if it's money, or skills, or supplies. Yashar'al, there are a lot of details. Transportation, vehicles, the ability to navigate, the ability to know how to move, with whom. There's so much work ahead of us, O Yashar'al. And as this work begin to come clear, I want you to, I implore you, I ask you, O Yashar'al, my brother, my sister, consider the visible countermeasures, the things that counter what the Most High is saying, and step away from them. Come away, purge. If there's a brother or sister who promotes these countermeasures that distract and consume time, seek to discern if the Most High Father in Yahusha's name is asking you to restore one into obedience, to correct one and reprove those who want to spend more time on telling you all the conspiracy theories and all that they're doing to us and all the fake news. It's time to look at how much space of a minute, a day are we consuming talking about what they're trying to do to us. Let us focus on what we should be doing, what we are expected to do, what we are ordered to do, to bind together a set-apart awakening nation, to fulfill the 144,000 in great multitude. You have been listening to Visible Countermeasures, my brothers and sisters, and I submit to you, success will come at the words of the Almighty Father. Population shuffle and forced migrations. In the midst of all the noise, we will grow to see, hear, and witness evidence of a coming together of a set-apart awakening nation. I want to thank you for your patience, your tolerance, your endurance in listening to this message. My prayer is that the Almighty Father strengthen you, provide you with a sound mind and spirit to discern and have the wisdom of knowing what decisions to make, who to be with and who to get away from, how to restore and how to reject. Restore what is good, what is set apart, and reject what is wicked. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, whether you believe this or not, I love you. I love you by the strength and power and might. I love you with the love that is spoken of in 1 Corinthians 13 chapter. I love you by the power and might of the Almighty Father Yahuah in Yahusha's name. And that comes with sound decisions. Even a loving parent will do much for their child, whether it be discipline, embrace, comfort, in some cases even induce pain that for the present might seem wrong, but it will yield the peaceable fruit of set apartness. Am I saying you're my children? No, by no means. But what I'm saying is the love for a child, the love for a husband and wife, the love for a brother or sister in Yahusha's name. You see, my brothers and sisters, because see, the scriptures tell us that there will be those in our household that will betray us. We must begin to recognize who the true family of Yashar'al, the set-apart family of Yashar'al, represents. And begin to look at that population. Begin to look at the migration towards them, towards one another, towards us. On that note, O Yashar'al, gird up. Our redemption truly is drawing near. I say to you, Shalum.